it's a history of about 20 years, that incinerator.
Yes.
They started in 73, and from the first day they started, they had problems there.
Yes.
And it's big history.
What we found was that the milk and cheese, what was made of the milk by the farmers themselves, was contaminated with chlorinated dioxins and chlorinated dibenzofuraans.
We asked the government, you will just have to close the incinerator.
Yes.
But we never had got answer.
Yes.
Never.
So the milk is taken away separately. They have calculated an area where the milk is too much contaminated, and that milk is now taken apart. The fat is separated from the rest of the milk, and because the dioxins are in the fat fraction, not in the protein fraction, and the milk fat is distracted and not used at all.
We want to leave here. We want to go away.
Yes.
Before, I think I have no future here.
The only possible source, in my opinion, and also of nearly everyone in the Netherlands now, is that the source of that chlorinated dioxins and dibenzofuraans is the municipal waste incinerator. For that sample, it was in the one in Rotterdam.
In Germany, we are very angry about the incinerators. They have many problems. The children are ill. We have a lot of effects of the incinerators.
You have problems with the children, you have problems to atmen.
Breathing, respiratory problems.
And they found out in Germany that breastfed babies take more than 100 picogram per kilogram per day. 100 times as much as grown-ups are allowed to take. And I think if we don't do anything about this dioxin problem, it's going to be worse. At the moment, our government, our health system still recommends breastfeeding, but not more than 3 months.
If you, as a human being, start discussing if you should breastfeed your baby or not, it's just the beginning of the end of mankind, because I think there's no species in nature that can afford not to breastfeed their offspring. And so as soon as you start discussing that, just everything is too late. It's 5 minutes after 12 o'clock, right?
Often people in the United States are told when they oppose incinerators that people in Germany and Europe love incinerators. They've had them for many years. They're happy with them. They're happy with the technology. And why are American citizens concerned about the emissions, about the cost, or anything else? We've come to Germany to find out what people really think about incineration.
Jürgen, in the United States, people think that people in Europe, particularly Germany, are very fond of incinerators, like incinerators. What's your reaction to that?
I would say it's a perfect lie. They begin to hate these incinerators more and more. The problem is only that they not really know about the way incinerators bring the bad things into their life. It's just at the beginning that the farmers know about incinerators in Holland, which spoiled the earth, so they could not any longer treat their soil. And more people think that it's one of the most dangerous things which can happen. The problem only is that you cannot see the danger.
We have almost 120 groups fighting against incinerators in Baden-Württemberg.
We work here in Bavaria together with the groups and also in Baden-Württemberg, in Hessen, in Nordrhein-Westfalen. We have more such groups, and we work together.
How many groups, just roughly, would you say there are in Germany concerned about this issue?
Oh, I think 500-600.
500 or 600?
I think so.
How many in Bavaria?
We work together with 90 groups, yes.
90 groups. Susanna, you were part of the group that ran this advertisement in the local newspaper here. Would you explain what it says?
Well, it says Doctors Against MVA. MVA is Incineration, Müllverbrennung. And they're planning to build an incinerator in Burgkirchen, which is about 30 kilometers west of Simbach. We knew about this and we thought we must do something against it.
And you have how many doctors' names there?
We have 125 doctors, which is half of all the doctors in this county.
And in this countryside we have 360 doctors against incinerators. We are now starting a campaign to get a lot of more doctors to help us. And it's just starting. That was the first part.
And why are the doctors opposed to incineration here?
Well, we think incineration is the worst method to deal with our waste, because there are lots of dangerous things coming out of the incinerator. Heavy metal,
yes,
and dioxin above all, which is really very dangerous.
And some people have to move away from incinerators. It was not possible for them to live there any longer. And some farmers have to leave their farm because it was not possible to live there any longer.
You have problems with the children, you have problems to atmen.
Breathing, respiratory problems, breathing problems.
And all this in the near of the wie heißt Verbrennung?
Incinerators.
Of the near of the incinerators.
Is that what's happening now? Do people complain of breathing problems near the incinerators?
Yes, I know it. Tomorrow I go to Kempten and I know that the people, they have problems.
They have problem with breath.
Breathing.
And they are often ill. They are missing at work. There's some unspecified illness.
And there's a doctor, his name is Dr. Moorhardt, and he makes a paper of all the problems for these kids.
In Kempten, near the incinerator.
Especially in Kempten.
What's this one?
That's a booklet from a doctor in Augsburg. He has collected all information about on these poisons that come out of incineration of an incinerator, especially on dioxin. He has read a lot of literature and collected all the information.
This is Dr. Andreas Hellman
from Augsburg.
What has the government said, or what do doctors say about breastfeeding children now?
The government say it isn't. The doctors say it isn't perhaps, and the people know that the problem is there. Especially here in Munich, we have an incineration, and the young woman has problems. And was heißt untersucht, ja?
To investigate.
The milk is investigated, that's okay, and they found dioxins.
Breastfeeding is the best you can do to small children, but we have more and more dangerous stuff in the milk of the mother. And that's the big problem with the dioxins. We have a, what was it, Grenzwert. The acceptable daily intake is 1 picogram per kilogram per day. And they found out in Germany that breastfed babies take more than 100 picogram per kilogram per day. 100 times as much as grown-ups are allowed to take. And I think if we don't do anything about this dioxin problem, it's going to be worse. At the moment, our government, our health system still recommends breastfeeding, but not more than 3 months. They say 3 months and then stop because of the contamination of the mother's milk. And I think if we don't do anything, if we don't stop dioxin in our environment, it's going to be 2 months in 2 years' time. Or they will say, no, we can't recommend it at all anymore.
I think it's not only for when the kids are leaving, it's before sie geboren werden, before the kids born, they have problems in.
Children are the patients who are threatened most by the poison that comes out, by all poison in our environment, but also by the poison from the incineration. And I think I was very happy that pediatricians worked with us.
As a speaker of the Bavarian government, I don't like it when doctors have unterstützen. Was heißt das? Our campaign?
Speak out.
Na, unterstützen.
When doctors supported.
When doctors supported our campaign,
Yes.
they have problems with the Bavarian government. They want that they are silent. Silent. I think it's silent. That's okay. They want that the doctors are silent.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes.
They want it, but the doctors say we have to say it, and we say it now. I think that's the problem for the government, not for us. Huh?
And we want to act before people become patients. We want to do something to protect the health of people in this country.
The politics of the government in Bavaria for the last 20 years was that they pushed building of incineration plants very much. They built 15 plants in these 20 years, and they planned 15 more. So that almost every waste in Bavaria would have been burned.
The activity is because people in the government are so fond of incineration, and that's why the opposition is so big and strong.
So it's a reaction to the government's plan.
As a reaction, yes.
Tell us a little bit more about the referendum that's going in.
Well, a referendum is a speciality of Bavaria. People in Bavaria can make a law. Not only people in the government, but people all over Bavaria. And that is the last referendum was about 17 years ago, very long time ago. We didn't use this instrument of making a law for a long time, and we felt that our law concerning waste isn't satisfactory at the moment. So people in the movement against incineration developed a new law and tried to push it forward by this referendum.
Now explain that.
Yeah.
You needed 10% of the voting population to get this to the next stage.
That's right.
And what was 10%?
10% was close to 850,000 votes.
You needed 850,000 signatures.
Yes, signatures, and the problem was the signatures were not allowed to be collected on the street. People had to go to the Rathaus, to the local Verwaltung, as we call it.
And how many signatures did you get?
It was 1,000,000 and about 60,000 votes and signatures.
And how long did that take place? How long did you get?
It was exactly from the 16th to the 28th of June. this year.
So in less than 2 weeks, you were able to get over 1 million people to go to a special place to vote for this referendum.
That's right.
And what were they voting for? Now explain the details.
They are voting for a better law to treat the waste. And it's called Abfallwirtschaftsgesetz, which means it's not only a law how to put the waste away, but to build up an economy on the use, the better use, the conversion of wastes, and so on.
You got, I'm told, over 1 million people in 2 weeks to go out of their houses and vote in places where they had to vote.
Yes, that's right.
How did you do that?
Oh, we organized it in 70 districts in Bavarian. And in every district we had a
team leader?
A team leader, yes, a team leader. And he have to organize this in the district. And he have to do all the works they have to do. Was sind Vorträge?
Speeches, leaflets?
Yes.
You had leaflets?
In first time we make for all together Plakate, Jung.
Posters?
Posters, yes, we make posters. We make, wie sind Handzettel jetzt wieder? Notices? No, just some...
Little leaflets, yeah.
What's that? Notices?
Notices, yes. Billboards?
Billboards?
Yes.
Yes, I think that could be. We make posters, we make billboards, and all people can have these posters and the billboards and can tell to everyone what we want to do and what we want to change. We want to change anything.
Did you have the media interested? Television, radio?
Oh, I think there we had problems. Because in Bavaria it's not easy to make anything with the radio or the television. Anything what's not mit der Regierung.
Supporting the government?
Supporting the government, yes. Therefore we have problems.
What about the newspapers?
The newspapers, yes, I think it was better to work together with the newspapers, especially the Süddeutsche Zeitung. It's going really good.
Well, I am absolutely amazed that you were able to get over 1 million people, not just to vote for something, but to do something. They had to go out and do this. It wasn't just signing a petition. They had to go out and vote. You didn't have the television, didn't have the radio, and you did this in 2 weeks with leaflets and posters and...
But we have much people that work together. In Bavarian we had 19 groups. 90?
Yeah.
And the 90 groups speaks with the people in the villages, in the towns, and they say we can't have such a law, dass es genehmigt ist zu verbrennen. Oh, Jürgen, hilf mir bitte.
We cannot stay with a law which favors incinerators.
And the people say, okay, we vote for you.
The alternative, the better das bessere Müllkonzept, the better concept to treat the waste.
And what is that better way of treating waste?
And the better way is, first, if the waste at the moment is 100%,
yes, yes.
We expect that you can avoid about 15% of this, just to avoid it by better production and refuse it. To reduce another about 30% by composting, to hold back by recycling processes, what we call Verwertung or Weiterverwendung, another part, and just before the depots and the landfills, to use this biogas process to put the polluted or the dirty organic stuff and convert it so that a rest of about 1/5 of the present amount of waste may be brought to the landfill, and this 20% about of this now 100% is with lower risk because the dangerous parts are already put out.
I see.
So it's a reduction back to 20% combined with a reduction of the risk potential.
I noticed there's a phrase in the beginning here. I'd like you to translate that into English for me. I think I know what it means, but just in case. You say it in German first of all and then in English.
Yeah. In der Natur gibt es keinen Müll. It says nature does not produce any Müll.
Nature doesn't produce waste.
Nature does not produce waste.
And composting is nature's recycling.
Yes. And it's, I would say, the most successful recycling process because it has no byproducts if you have the right conditions. The mixture of plastic stuff and organic material is hard to compost because it spoils the quality. And this material causes problems on the landfills because it produces biogas there and so on, and polluted water. So the idea is, before the landfill, before to deposit the waste, to put out, after composting, the polluted organic stuff, convert it with the process of biogas.
Methane gas.
Yes, into methane gas, and use it.
I see.
So just to reduce the risk of the landfills. Das bessere Müllkonzept, the better concept to treat the waste.
I think if you burn all the things, you have no, was heißt Rohstoffverjüngung?
Raw materials.
Raw materials. You burn the raw materials. Why shall we do that? It's not possible to do that. We need it. We need it in Germany. And we don't like to, that it burns.
People are ready to separate. People are ready to do everything. People do only one thing not understand. That is the politicians, that they do not switch over to the better concepts. So it's more or less a thing that people expect from the local communities to do more and definitely offer an infrastructure where people know what is done with the separated materials. Because this is the problem now. It's very comfortable to put everything in the same bin and it's brought away. They have not to think. And the problem is to bring also the community level to a part where they have to think and they have to do something and they have to offer the better way to the citizens. The citizens are prepared. They are ready. They will do everything.
Well, we are having a party here in Holland. It's a little farmhouse in the county of Rottal-Inn. We had a very successful referendum in Bavaria, especially in this county, and so today we are having a party to celebrate our success. There are lots of children here, and at the moment they are playing a game. We want to try and find ideas how we can avoid waste.
Papiertüten?
Take paper bags instead of plastic bags.
Keine Kunststoffverpackungen?
No plastic bags.
Pfandflaschen?
Deposit bottles.
Pudding selber machen?
Make your sweets yourself. Don't buy them in plastic.
Schüssel mitnehmen?
Take your china when you're invited, so you don't need plastic. I think it's very important that already the children know or learn that waste is a problem and we have to try and do something about it.
sometimes when we talk about this in the United States, we're told you're against progress. This is going backwards. This is backwards. What's your response to that?
Yeah, that's pure nonsense. I cannot say more. I know this. And we had on Tuesday a meeting. This is not in 100% connection with this basic mill concept, but the thing is, if you define progress in a way that you come to structures with a higher intelligence, more information content, that's a progressive concept. And these structures are based on another information structure. You must have first a higher intelligence in the system by planning. And this concept forces all the disciplines which are, I would say, on the upper end of the high tech. So I think this is not only a strong push for high tech, it's also a strong push for the smaller industry, according to this speech, small is beautiful. It's the biggest push for the local economy, I would say.
Why is that?
Because with incinerators, you must have a centralized structure. And you can only avoid waste, you can only make a good conversion if you decentralize. And decentralizing makes necessary a more direct contact with the problem. And this, in turn, forces you to have better information systems. So it's a change over, I would say, from waste flow to information flow.
In Zurich, they're trying to have small units in the city which have their own compost. For instance, a big house or some houses together, they have their compost together. They have to have some help when they start this thing, and I'm told that it works very well. They have about 300 and something of these compost places in Zurich.
So a little community composting.
Little community composting system.
In addition to whatever the individual may or may not be able to do.
Yes.
Community compost.
Yes.
That sounds pretty exciting.
Yes, I think that's a good thing. It's easy, you don't have to build up a collecting system because the compost places are near to the houses. And I was told that in Zurich it helps getting through the anonymity in these big houses because people meet at the compost sites.
So you've got a little community development possibility.
I think that's very interesting.
Who builds incinerators in Germany?
I would say it's exactly the same companies as building nuclear power plants. And the advertising was much more aggressive since Chernobyl.
Chernobyl, yeah.
Chernobyl, yes. So you could really identify all the companies, all the people in the lobby, and I would say it's, if you lay it over, it's a sharp coincidence in terms of companies and in terms of people who try to force incineration.
Only parts of the industry are pro-incineration. They're for it because they build such plants and they sell them and so on, but that's not very many people. And even in the industry, the part that looks for recycling gets bigger and bigger. So I think that even from this part, where of course the contacts between conservatives and industry are there, I think even from this side, the incineration has no future.
Are people in Germany concerned about the ash from incinerators?
Yeah.
They are?
Yes, they are. And that's, I think, a very weak point of the incinerators. They know they have already now problems with the money. Incinerators in planning double or quadruple the money before they even built. And they know exactly if better treatment of the ashes and the filter residues will be done, this will again rise the prices for incineration. And I know the figures from the city of Munich, can tell you. It was priced for incineration of 1 ton in 88, 45 marks. In 90, 175 marks, and it's proposed for 1992 for over 440 Deutschmark per ton. And I must add the following. This is without a good treatment of ash and residues, because in Munich they put the residues together, the filter residues, together with the ash on the normal landfill.
You think come February we're going to see a victory against incineration?
Yes, of course.
And for a better kind of waste management?
Yes, of course.
As we prepare to leave Bavaria, one looks back on these last few days with a certain amount of irony, I guess is the word. Most people and many people in the United States have been told that Germany loves incineration, and particularly Bavaria. Clearly there is, on the other hand, a very strong movement against building any more incinerators and closing down incinerators. We have this referendum which required over 1 million people to go into government buildings and put their signature on a piece of paper to that effect. So on the one hand we have a government which has been in power here, which is in power because of it's a conservative government. It doesn't want change. It wants things to continue. And one of the things it wants to continue is to burn everything, the incinerator. And on the other hand, we have the message from many, many people which says we want a better garbage concept. They want to change. They want to move away from incineration. If you like, it may be simply a local reflection of a desire to have something happen from the global point of view. They see a need in Germany, as in many parts of the world, to do something about the global deterioration, the greenhouse effect, forest destruction, and so on. And maybe this, what we're seeing here, this call for a change, is partly reflecting that, the need to do something different. We cannot have business as usual. Incineration is business as usual. The other thing that I think is worth thinking about is the similarities and the differences with this resistance movement here in Bavaria from the people. We've seen activists whose stories are very similar to activists in the United States. Many of them were not environmentalists, many of them were not activists before this trash issue overtook them in one form or another, either a local landfill or local incinerator. Now their lives are changed. They're not just working many days, it's almost every day, every week, every month fighting this battle, and we see things like that, people like that in the United States as well. I think one of the big differences to see the very prominent role that doctors are playing. Doctors who are saying we want to prevent the problems before they happen. We'd like to cure the problem before it hits the patient. What is this due to? Perhaps the doctors certainly are concerned having to tell their patients whether they should be breastfeeding their infants. Should they breastfeed their infants? That's clearly something that's hit doctors here more than the United States. Clearly they're concerned about the stories from Holland with the dioxins building up in the cow's milk. I think they recognize that there are no tablets, there are no medicines to give people to cure a problem like that. You have to cure it at the front end and not the back end. And I think they're also disturbed by the stories of respiratory problems and possibly increased cancer rates near incinerators that have been functioning for a number of years in Germany. So it's certainly been a very, very interesting experience to see these contrasts, and certainly the contrast with the reality as brought to us by spokesmen for the incinerator industry in the United States. And it's certainly exciting to consider right now that in a few months' time, in February of 1991, we may witness in Bavaria the biggest setback to the incinerator industry for many, many years. Because if Bavaria says no, it must have a major impact on Germany, and if Germany says no, it will certainly have a major impact on the rest of the world. And that could not come at a better time, when people are looking at developments in Eastern Europe and sense that very easily they could pick up incinerators along with blue jeans and other aspects of Western development. We haven't much time to turn that around.
I think we know enough to see that there is really a problem, and we have to go into solutions to prevent the further increase of the environment with dioxins and related compounds. I think it's not only dioxins, it's a number of compounds with similar toxic qualities, and I think dioxins are only the tip of the iceberg. And so far we only have tried technical solutions by reducing dioxins in the environment, by improving, for example, municipal waste incineration. And I think we have to go in much more into prevention to stop use chemicals and precursors of dioxins and related compounds.
We're now in the state of Schleswig-Holstein, a state in Germany which is several hundred miles north of Bavaria. We're in the town of Kiel, which is at the absolute tip of northern Germany. Here too we're finding citizens and doctors opposed to incineration and looking for better alternatives. And we've had the opportunity here to interview the Minister of the Environment, Professor Bernd Heidemann, as Professor of Biology and Minister of Nature, Environment and Development.
I think the problem of dioxin and furan will be one of the main problems of the next 10 years in Germany, by accumulating of the substances in the soil, by accumulation in the sediments of water, marine side too, by maybe biomagnification in the nutrient circuits, nutrient chains. And it may be that in some time, like the polychlorinated PCBs, they are accumulating in the highest parts of the nutrition pyramid, seals, going to accumulate biomagnificated in the fat tissues of seals and other mammals.
This is the contamination found in mother's milk, and as you can see, all these peaks are residues, and these are all organochlorine compounds. And Frau Lassen is in charge of this, and so far in the last 5 years we've done more than 2,000 breast milk samples. Germans are particularly concerned about environmental pollution and the buildup of toxic substances in the environment and in their own body. And since dioxins have a very long half-life, they accumulate in man and in the food chain, and at the end of the food chain of man is the baby, the newborn, that's breastfed. And the concentrations in mother's milk are very high. They are much higher than we would say acceptable from a toxicologist's view, but at present we still recommend breastfeeding because of the proven benefits of breastfeeding. Without these proven benefits, I think breastfeeding could not be recommended. But I think it's a balance between the risks and the benefits, and right now the benefits outweigh the risks.
Some people say there is no solution, there's nothing better than breast milk feeding, and so they just want to breastfeed as long as they want to in order to fight allergies, in order to give the baby and child more strength for getting rid of all the poisons and everything that meets them in later life. And then there are the other people who think it would be better not to breastfeed more than 4 months, and that's the opinion that a lot of pediatricians think is the right thing to do too. But in the whole, I'd say if you as a human being start discussing if you should breastfeed your baby or not, it's just the beginning of the end of mankind, because I think there's no species in nature that can afford not to breastfeed their offspring. And so as soon as you start discussing that, just everything is too late. It's 5 minutes after 12 o'clock, right?
I think it's very interesting that at this point to use the atmosphere as a dump site, as a landfilling, because all material which is burned is going to the air, all. And I always say in the air about Schleswig-Holstein, they are laying or flying each year 1.5 million tons of waste. They are flying about Schleswig-Holstein.
We have to take, I think, stringent measures to reduce the buildup of dioxins in the environment, and it will take, let's say, 20 years to reduce the levels in mother's milk.
Can we afford business as usual?
No. We have to act now. And I think we know enough to start, but to start, that would mean change our lifestyle.
I think that 80% can be reused or recycled.
We are a waste society, a trash society. And we're not looking back. We don't learn from the experience. We just think we can carry on.
I think there are 10 times more jobs in recycling of material than in burning of material.
Right.
Yes. And more littler management is possible in decentralization of these little firms or so, little groups of men which can have more innovation and recycling. The scientific progress can provide more new innovations in recycling management and reusing management, maybe in avoiding waste too.
How serious do you think the global environmental problems are?
I think they're very serious. It's the most threatening thing to human life. And I think if the build-up of a similar economy in the developing countries is going to continue, I think the planet will be no longer be inhabited as it is now.
The nature may be the prototype for a new development, evolution of new strategies in mechanics and strategies in chemical evolution, new chemical materials and development of non-toxic substances and so on. Nature has given us many examples to avoid poisonous substances and to recycle 100% in each ecosystem.
Our minister, he's going new ways in waste management. Instead of burning waste, he wants to go a new way. And I think he needs all the support he can get for this way.
I think in 1.5 years we have a new law here about waste management in Schleswig-Holstein, and we try to go our different way in comparison to the government in Bonn. Now, in the last months, I have got signs from Bremen and from Hamburg and Lower Saxony that this way from Schleswig-Holstein is interesting for these other countries too. And it may be for Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, the new country of DDR. We have here 5 points, 5 arguments. Positive in the direction of incineration, and 12 points which are negative in the direction of incineration. And because of this difference, 5 to 12, we have concluded to avoid incineration.
The advantages of incineration. 1, it reduces the amount of landfill space needed. 2, it produces energy. 3, it reduces the organic content of the residue which has to be landfilled. 4, it improves the aesthetics of landfilling. And 5, it reduces the methane otherwise produced in landfills. The disadvantages of incineration. 1, 30 to 35% by weight of the starting material is left as ash. A considerable part of this, especially the fly ash, must be disposed of in a special dump. 2, incineration of waste produces dioxins and furans, which may be emitted into the air or left on the ash. 3, many unknown, potentially toxic substances are produced. The full environmental danger of these may not be determined until after they have accumulated in the environment for many years. 4, dioxin and furan removal is very expensive. To meet the new German emission standard of 0.1 nanogram of dioxin equivalents per cubic meter will cost between $25 and $30 million for a medium-sized facility. 5, incineration is actually a waste of energy because more energy is saved when materials are reused, thus avoiding the high energy demand of manufacture from raw materials. 6, the decision to burn is irreversible. Materials can very seldom be recovered from the ash. 7, because incineration does not require source separation, it is difficult to recover materials from the waste stream going into an incinerator. 8, incineration is inflexible. Once online, its use has to be maximized. There is little incentive to recover material for other purposes. 9, covered storage of material, on the other hand, provides for more flexible recovery and reuse of the materials in the future. 10, composting of waste offers an alternative way of preventing methane gas production. 11, materials reuse rather than incineration reduces the overall load of carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere. And 12, incineration puts 70% of the waste into the atmosphere as either gases or suspended particulates.
And because of this difference, 5 to 12, we have concluded to avoid incineration.
As we leave Germany en route to Holland, I think this is a good moment to reflect on the differences that we've experienced in two states, Bavaria and Schleswig-Holstein. In Bavaria, we found the citizens concerned and mobilized against incineration, but the government still promoting incineration. In Schleswig-Holstein, we found less overt concern about incineration, but certainly concern about the build-up of dioxin in mother's breast milk, both from citizens and doctors. The big difference, though, was that we found that the Minister of the Environment was concerned about incineration, wanted to see an end to incineration, and instead a pursuit of more positive, safer, long-term solutions to waste management. A very exciting experience to meet an official with that kind of vision. Now we're going to Holland, and we're going to Holland precisely because of concerns about the buildup of dioxin in dairy cattle downwind of incinerators. It was back in July of 1989 that the Dutch government announced that the levels of dioxin in dairy milk downwind of a very large trash incinerator in Rotterdam was 3 times higher than the dioxin levels in dairy milk from anywhere else in Holland. The incinerator behind me burns between 2,000 and 3,000 tons of trash a day. It was built in 1973. In this shot, we can get an idea of the location of the trash incinerator with respect to the dairy farmland that it has impacted. Behind me, you see those 3 stacks of the facility. 2 of the stacks are from the trash incinerator, and the other one, the blacktop stack, is from the hazardous waste incinerator beside it. It was back in July of 1989 that the Dutch government told 16 dairy farmers that they couldn't sell their milk. That was over 1 million gallons a year of milk. Right now, these cows have just been milked, and that milk will go to a processing facility where it is skimmed, and the fat, which contains most of the dioxin, will then be sent, believe it or not, back to the same facility, which not only has a trash incinerator, but has a hazardous waste incinerator there too. We have a strange, ironic kind of recycling.
All the years you think, what's happening with me? How bad is it for me? And later you think, what are you going to do with our cows? You have much years, you work with the cows. In the beginning they say maybe all the cows go to the,
to the abattoir.
To the abattoir.
What we found was that the milk and cheese, what was made of the milk by the farmers themselves, was contaminated with chlorinated dioxins and chlorinated dibenzofurans on a level that when people normally have in their diet those milk and that cheese, that they get more dioxins and dibenzofurans than is allowed according to the acceptable daily intake of chlorinated dioxins and dibenzofurans as it is stated in the Netherlands.
We asked the government, you will just have to close the incinerator.
Yes.
But we never had got answer.
Yes.
No,
Never.
an answer on the letter.
No.
Well, they haven't closed the incinerator because we were there this afternoon and we saw enormous quantities of trash being burned.
Maybe it's the biggest of the world, about 1 million tons a year. And then they said, where have we to go with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so that's also
waste.
a problem.
Yes.
There are 2 problems for the government.
Yes.
Closing the incinerator and saying to the farmers, you can't sell the milk. And they have to make a choice between that 2 problems.
And they've decided to...
decided.
We want to leave here. We want to go away.
Yes.
Before, I think I have no future here.
The future for the young farmers is gone here. And so the price of the land and the buildings going down.
Yes.
And then they said you have to go to the incinerator and ask for
compensation.
For compensation, yes.
What are the possible sources of those dioxins in the cow's milk, do you think?
The only possible source, in my opinion, and also of nearly everyone in the Netherlands now, is that the source of that chlorinated dioxins and dibenzofurans is the municipal waste incinerator. For that sample, it was in the one in Rotterdam.
I have every day a lot of phone calls who want information about incineration, and they want to be with our organization to fight against incinerators.
Are you in contact with groups in other provinces in Germany?
Yes, we had a lot of contacts, mostly with Bavaria. There's a well organization against incinerators, but also with the north of Germany, Austria and Switzerland. And less with Italy and France. They didn't realize the problem of incinerators, and we hope to wake them up.
Well, we're now back in the United States, or to be more exact, we're in the attic of Roger Bailey's house, where we spend many hours editing these videotapes on waste. Time for 2 news items. First, we've learnt from Holland that the Dutch government has now closed down 4 of its 11 incinerators and is going to retrofit the other 7 with activated charcoal filters, and incidentally that includes the Rotterdam incinerator. With the information that Germany and Austria are also retrofitting incinerators with activated charcoal filters, I think it's safe to say that no incinerator in the United States can any longer claim that they are fitted with best available control technology. Clearly, the experiment has moved on. A second important news item comes from Germany, from Ingolstadt in Bavaria. There they have measured the dioxin emissions from that incinerator, and they are astonishingly high, over 4,000 times higher than the new German standard. A simple calculation indicates that this one incinerator alone is putting out over 200 grams of dioxin each year. And that is over half the estimate from the German government for all 37 incinerators. As one critic pointed out, either this Ingolstadt incinerator is the worst incinerator that's ever been built, or the German government seriously underestimated the dioxin emission problem. We, and I think many people in Germany, suspect the latter, that the German government did indeed underestimate the dioxin emission problem in Germany. I hope that this videotape has silenced once and for all the notion that Europeans love incineration. We hope that American communities can learn from Europe's mistake with incineration and, like them, pursue a better garbage concept. This is Paul Connett saying goodbye.